When I look back at my childhood, I've been started out with dancing first of all. When I was about 3, I used to have my own way of dancing. Even though my mother was not into dancing, but I was crazy about dancing and bright gowns and high heels. I was crazy about Barbies and pop stars. That's what I can explain from my first interesting elements in femininity that I can introduce myself as a non-binary now. So as I said, my mother was not a dance lover that I learned from her, but my ears were my first part of my body that was so involved with art. And still now that I'm a grown-up man, my listening is much better than my writing or speaking. Different parts of the brain handle different aspects of a song, like rhythm, the beat, and tone pitch, and loudness. And when I was about 3, I was like a pro dancer. It was like I had a dancing teacher. And of course, I'm from 90s. That means that I used to watch the best animations ever with great colorful visuals. Painting can be another practice in visuals that most of the children are working on that skill from a very young age. And I remember my mother took me to the Institute for the Intellectual Development of Children and Young Adults, called Kanun in Persian. This Iranian institution with a wide range of cultural and artistic activities in the field of mental and cultural development for children, toys that were good for mental training, painting, books, puzzles, and all of this stuff. And I think that was my first step about understanding art. The first book that I remember my mother used to read for me, like the most of Iranian children, is Samad Behrangi's Little Black Fish, who was an Iranian social activist and critic. He is famous for his children's books, and I remember my mother was only 22 and I was 3 years old, so they were young and fashionable. And the first fashion experience that I remember was that I drew them the day after parties with details of their makeups and accessories, and kind of illustrated their styles. And I remember I only used to wear what I liked to, and I chose my clothes myself. So that's the childhood memories that I remember as someone who's interested in arts. Then I entered the school, and my social life was so fine because I had the best peers in my school. All I remember is that I had the best experiences. My mother thought I'm good at painting. She sent me to many drawing classes, but it was in the age of 11, 12 that I had the best teacher, Katayun Taleizadeh, who is Abbas Kiarostami's actress in his film called 10. And she introduced me to Abbas Kiarostami, who was a member of Kanun, the Institute for the Intellectual Development of Children that I mentioned. And I was so amazed by Kiarostami. Then I went to making movies, and I made several movies that I think are still good today. And talking about today's movement, I'm serious. As 17 years old, I made a documentary that was about voice that women experience in cinema industry for taking a role. And I don't want to exaggerate that I was very unique, but at least I had my own style and vision. After making several trilogy and animations and practicing movie montage, I was reading art history, and I understood that fashion is the new matter of art, and I want to enter to that world. And I was not planning to be a brand or a selling designer. I was in a deep place of art history that I think till now I've never been that much deep in understanding movements and different cultures, from music to art and fashion, when I was just 18. And now it is about a decade that I designed and styled and photographed and even did my hair and makeups for the collections I did, that each of these collections narrating a story that is like a connected journey. And it is time that as a grown man to understand what I want to present to the place that I earned in the art world. I'm working on my writing skills, from poetry to academic articles. It's about 3 years that I wrote about many things that people don't even read, but I just want to keep going. My writings are more about the relationship between fashion and other disciplines. In Salar Bil's journal, I try to examine fashion in other disciplines of the humanities and highlights its relationship to these disciplines. For example, part of my journal writing focus on the impact of globalization on fashion and the diaspora in shaping part of Iranian fashion. On the other hand, in art journal, I try to deal with fashion and other arts in more specialized way. For example, in an article I addressed the issue of whether fashion can be considered a sculpture or in general is fashion art. These are the questions I try to answer in our journal. In fact, with my writings, I try to educate myself more about fashion and examine its relationship to other disciplines of the humanities so that we can have a broader view of the phenomenon of fashion. And I did translate many books that Ministry of Culture and Islamic Guidance is not going to publish. And even they showed me, as someone who is non-binary and promote feminist corrupt ideas, that I take it as a compliment that made me a true activist, because it was the most important TV news. And now I'm just trying to figure out the world around me, and I understood curators and producers and even planners. They all want to sell your work. It's not about helping you do a cultural job. It's all about sales, which is important, but I want to dive into a world of poetry and academic articles and finding my own voice to level up and make something that is going to pave the way for the next generations of artists. And I worked with Christina Aguilera and David LaChapelle, which are my first childhood idols, and I think I'm on the right path because of that matter. And someone like Patti Smith, which is a genius, and my most favorite song of all time is her Rock and Roll Nigger, is giving me advices and empower me to reach my goals. So that's a short story of me that I want to record in 2022, and I hope that one day I can heal and embrace myself as someone who is satisfied of attention and is just concerned about good work and getting smaller and smaller and nearer to be my own voice, and stripped away from all the elements that I think are unnecessary to have as an artist, and finding my own voice that hopefully can inspire others.